Good evening. I would like to call the June 11th, 2018 Bellbrook City Council meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Greenwood?
Here.
Mr. McGill?
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Here.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schweller?
Here.
Mayor Baird?
Here. Formal approval of City Council regular meeting minutes of May 14th, 2018. Does any member on council have any corrections or additions to the regular City Council meeting minutes of our last meeting?
I had none, Mayor.
No.
Seeing none, the minutes are approved as written. Mayor's announcements. We did have an executive session this evening at 6:30 to discuss personnel matters and employment of public employees. With that, we're going to move on to mayor's announcements. I'm very proud to present Marty Heidi, who we see each other running around town quite frequently. Marty is Congressman Turner's Office of Legislation. Is going to give us a brief update on the congressman.
Thank you. I'm Marty Heidi, and I'm Green and Fayette County Outreach for Congressman Mike Turner. And tonight I just want to bring you up to date. I kind of come to your meetings and give you some information about what's going on in the district. And tonight I'm going to switch it up a little bit to actually bring up some legislation as a result of communication with Greene County residents. And so the emphasis tonight is to stress the importance of communication from you all to Congressman Turner so that these events that have federal impact can be addressed. A couple years ago, Congressman Turner toured the juvenile detention facility in Greene County, and as a result of that, he found out that once someone is incarcerated, Medicaid stops. And that means the burden of providing any kind of Medicaid or medicines, also a program that might help someone in detox and rehab. Those funds are paid for by the sheriff and the taxpayers. So he introduced the TREAT Act to amend the Social Security Act to let Medicaid continue. That kind of stalled a little bit, but there's new momentum on a Medicaid Reentry Act that was introduced, and that is getting a lot of traction. They're still addressing the larger TREAT Act, but this one allows for 30 days prior to release to get the Medicaid started. So, and the medication. So that means if you're incarcerated, 30 days before your anticipated release date, you can get into a program and get started on rehab and detox, and hopefully while you're in the grips of Greene County Jail, you can start the rehab process. So that's House Energy and Commerce Committee, and I think probably by now it's back out on the House floor. That was a result of someone saying, hey, did you know? The other one was also a result of Congressman Turner introducing the Fostering Stable Housing Opportunities Act. What happened is when foster children come of age, 17 or 18, once they come of age and are out on their own, then there's no place for them to live. Mm-hmm. And so this was a simple HUD and HHS. You need to talk together. So when they enter the foster program, their name through HHS, which is Health and Human Services, goes to HUD, and they get on the list for HUD housing. And that way, when they age out of the foster program, they'll be closer to eligibility and have a place to live. Because this was a federally induced homelessness. And so getting these two agencies to work together was critical. So that's the most recent, but again, give our office a call if you get a light bulb and you say, you know, that would be something that should be addressed, research it, let us take sort of that lead and go with it. Defense Forum this year is in October, 16th and 17th in Columbus, if anyone's interested. And we have right now an open caseload of about 400 cases. And so we're busy. We're one of the busier offices in the district, or in the state. veterans, Medicare, immigration, passport expedites, which I know we've provided service for, and we continue to do that. So if you need anything, give us a call. Communication.
How do we get a hold of you, Marty?
Pardon me?
How do we get a hold of you?
937-225-2843.
Does any member on council have any questions for Marty tonight?
The passport expedite works. Thanks so much.
Is that you, Mr. Schweller?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll be going on vacation for what the tickets.
Yes. We really would prefer to get your passport before you book your flight, but we have,
Didn't realize it was expired.
yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens.
But I got it in like, I think 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
I was actually shocked and
We
I,
have a congressional unit with every federal agency that we call and rely on to help us with issues like that. And our congressional liaison with the passport is overnight to New Hampshire. They get it done real quick, they pass it back to you, and it takes about a week, so sometimes
Worked
less
out well.
than that. So, well, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Marty.
Thank you, Marty.
For mayor's announcements, that's all we have this evening. Public hearings and ordinances, we have none. We have one introduction of ordinance number 2018-2. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 2018-2, an ordinance adopting the revised City of Bellbrook Personnel Manual. Whereas the City of Bellbrook periodically reviews its personnel policies and procedures, and whereas the city has made revisions to the personnel manual that incorporate these policies and procedures, and whereas the city desires to adopt the revised personnel manual, now therefore the City of Bellbrook hereby ordains, Section 1, that the revised personnel manual attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, setting forth personnel policies and procedures for employees of the City of Bellbrook is hereby adopted. Section 2, that this ordinance shall take effect August 1st of 2018.
Okay. All right, so this typically happens on an annual basis on or about November of each year, and I know that there were no changes in 2017. There was one particular item in which needed to be addressed in a more urgent manner, which is why you're seeing this now. If you look at page 6, section 2.6, there are a list of exempt employees, and we are adding the position of deputy fire chief, which is was a piece of the levy, the fire levy that just passed, and we are striking fire captain, as the fire captain, as a result of the fire contract, is no longer an exempt position. So that was the one change that was making this urgent. The only other notable change, there were a few clerical things here and there, but the only other change that I want to just draw attention to is on page 28. Actually, I think that there was one before that. Let me back up.
25.
It had to do, yes, page 25 and page 26. There was some interesting things in here as it related to sick leave. There was only an allowance of a half a day for a doctor's appointment, and the allowance of only 1 day if there was surgery to be performed. And then the one that really stuck out to me was the third one, which was an employee may be granted 2 days of sick leave for his or her child's birth. So I struck those restrictions to make them a little looser. However, there are still the provisions that if somebody is off work for 3 days or more, that they are supposed to provide a physician's statement, or could be required to by the supervisor. So on page 28, section 5.6a, that's where it talks about the physician's documentation, and actually the word issue is not supposed to be struck out. I accidentally struck out one word more than what I needed to, so that word issue, I will correct that for the second reading of this ordinance. So those were the only notable changes that were made.
Any questions on council? This is an introduction.
Family Friendly Leave Act, do we coordinate with that?
Family
Federal-
Medical Leave Act.
Federal
That's.
Yes, there's
yeah.
a whole section in here regarding FMLA, section 5.10 on page 29. It's actually a fairly lengthy, it goes all the way to page 33.
Okay. Yeah. And then the other one is when you report back to work for being sick, does the city have anybody evaluate somebody, maybe it's had a serious illness or injury or?
We would have that discretion to be able to do that. If
Okay.
it was a police officer or a firefighter or maybe a service worker that has specific physical requirements, then yes, absolutely, we would do that and we would still have that discretion.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on council? Seeing none, may I have a motion to introduce ordinance number 2018-2?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 2018-2.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
And roll call.
Motion by Mr. Edwards to introduce ordinance number 2018-02, an ordinance adopting the revised City of Bellbrook Personnel Manual, seconded by Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
Yes. Moving on, we have one resolution this evening, Resolution 2018-S. Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Resolution number 2018-S, a resolution declaring specific equipment no longer needed by the City of Bellbrook as surplus property and authorizing the city manager to dispose of said surplus property. Whereas the City of Bellbrook desires to maintain adequate equipment to be used by its personnel, and whereas equipment no longer needed for use by city personnel may be declared as surplus property per chapter 230 of the Bellbrook Municipal Code. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the following equipment is hereby declared as surplus property. 2008 GMC Sierra 1500 extended cab truck, and it lists the VIN number. Section 2, that the city manager is hereby authorized and directed to dispose of said property in accordance with Chapter 230 of the Bellbrook Municipal Code. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
Any questions? Pretty straightforward on this one.
Yeah, we bought 2 new trucks for the service department as part of the capital equipment program for 2018. One of the trucks is going to be used as an admin vehicle, so if the police department or anybody else would need a truck for anything, it's going to be kept around here. So then this was the other one that we're going to get rid of.
And that's all in our budget also.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on council?
We're gonna list it on like GovDeals or something?
Yes.
Gov deals. Yeah. Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2018-S?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2018-S.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
And roll call.
Motion by Mrs. Seeger Lawson to adopt Resolution 2018-S, a resolution declaring specific equipment no longer needed by the City of Bellbrook as surplus property and authorizing the city manager to dispose of said surplus property. Seconded by Mrs. Middlestetter. Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
Yes. Moving on, city manager's report.
Okay, so fire staffing, Captain House's full-time position is, we are currently in the process of hiring an individual for that. He is going through the necessary testing and we're hoping to have a start date very soon, so we're getting towards the end of that. I've also been working with the fire chief to work on some of the staffing changes that the levy would allow us to have. So part of that was the ordinance that we just read for the changes in the personnel policy manual and hiring a deputy chief as a result of that. So that's been in the works. We have a comprehensive plan update still ongoing. The planning board met on the 7th. The preliminary results of that community survey were gone over. There were 153 responses, I believe. So it was a lot of really good information. It was a really good meeting that we had. A lot of the comments were really interesting to read. So we are going to be working on some of the next steps with that, and so I will keep everybody updated. And if anybody would want a copy of those preliminary results, I can give those out. If I didn't already, I might have. I can't remember.
I
don't think so.
Okay, I can forward those on then.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them.
Yeah, they're really interesting. Great suggestions made by a lot of folks. Upper Hillside Water Main Project, all residences have been connected to the new water main, no major issues. There are a few things left in the project. There's a pressure reducing valve that goes from the low pressure main to the high pressure main. And that valve is being custom built, so that's supposed to be completed by mid-July. And it will need to communicate with the water plant with a fiber line. So we're looking at whether the feasibility of that fiber line is going to be aerial or burial, and we're trying to go with the aerial route, but we won't know. They're still doing that feasibility study as to whether or not that's going to be possible on the existing poles. So once we determine that, then the fiber installation will occur. Asphalt is tentatively set to start mid-July with a 10-day completion, and then once the asphalt is complete, the yard restoration will occur after that. So that's it for Upper Hillside Water Main Project, moving along smoothly. In the 2018 paving program, all of that's been completed, and special thanks to Dale Wilson for getting that moved up on the schedule. It was not supposed to happen until August, and it's already completed, so that's been great. So that's it.
Any questions for our city manager?
Let's I got one question for you, and it kind of made me think of it as we revise the personnel manuals. One of the things that Mark was in the process of doing was going through certain sections of the ordinances and basically updating. Did he pass on his thoughts to
Yes.
you as far as what's going
Yes.
on? Because I thought that was value added. We were basically cleaning up a lot of language that was meaningless and deleting a lot of stuff that no longer applied and going more toward the state code instead of having Bellbrook, so.
Yes, he did pass along some of the sections that needed special attention. So,
Okay, I just want to
yes.
make sure they passed the baton. I thought
Yep.
that was important to do, and we'll
Yep.
look forward to seeing your results on that at some point,
Yep.
but no rush.
Thank you.
Anything else for our city manager? Seeing none, we'll move on to committee report. Service?
No report tonight.
Safety?
The only thing to report is safety committee had a meeting to discuss the festivals we have, make sure that everything's in place and we're safe. Just to dot the i's and cross the t's, just to take a look at it, quick look. And then we had some recommendations to the city manager, and she's gonna take those and meet with the people that run the festivals and so on. So that's all I got.
Finance and audit, Mr. Schwaller?
Nothing to report, but I was going to ask city manager if she's had any communication with the State of Ohio Department of Audits.
Not yet. Financial
Okay.
statements have been submitted, so
Okay.
I imagine that at any point they're going to be calling.
Okay, good, thanks.
Community affairs?
The only thing I have is that on Saturday, unfortunately, the river cleanup didn't happen because of the huge amount of rain that happened, and made the river unsafe for canoes. But the festival went on afterwards in the Bellbrook Park, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Scenic Rivers Act. It's the first one in the nation in Ohio, and the national one then followed in November. So that was really shepherded through by Glenn. Yes, his name just went out of my head. The editor of the Old Dayton Journal. He pushed that through. So this was the 50th anniversary of that Scenic Rivers Act. And if people don't know, the Little Sugar Creek, or the Little Miami River, is the only river that is designated as a scenic river for its entire length. Other rivers have portions that are designated scenic, but we have the only river in the country that the entire length of the river is a scenic river. So it's great that the river keepers are dedicated to keeping it clean and pure, and lots of aquatic animals and critters are back in the water, which indicates a healthy ecosystem. So it was just really great to see that happening, that there's enough people who care about our water and our environment to go to the efforts they do to protect it and bring it forward. And I had wanted to bring up about putting some signs on our bridges where our creeks are, but I have to clarify some issues, so I'm going to hold off on that. But a lot of the rivers have about the Little Miami watershed, which means all the land around that drains into the Little Miami River, so which affects, of course, the quality of the river. which then eventually flows into the Great Miami River, which then goes into the Ohio, and then the Mississippi, and finally the Gulf of Mexico. So it all flows downhill, folks. So, that's all.
And it was a great event. We did, or I should say, I did do 2 proclamations
Yeah.
recognizing Hope Taft and the Little Miami River Cleaners, and also the watershed community and a couple other organizations, along with recognizing the manager of Scenic Rivers for Ohio, who was in attendance. It was a good event. Unfortunately, the weather did not cooperate the night before, so the canoes were not in the water to clean it up, but we've had very successful cleanups in the past, and they may do one later in the year, so. Moving on, any old business? New business. We have, I think, one item on here, and this is to appoint Melissa Dodd as alternate delegate to the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. Mark Schlagheck was the delegate, I'm the primary, but you have to have 2 people who can vote. So I guess, may I have a motion to appoint Melissa Dodd as the alternate delegate to the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
And roll call.
Motion by Mrs. Middlestetter to appoint Melissa Dodd as alternate delegate to Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, seconded by Mr. McGill. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
Yes. Open discussion.
I'd just like to once again thank Dale Wilson, our Service Department Manager, for expediting the paving program, especially on Little Sugar Creek, which, when it's dry, you get the dust on your car, and when it's raining, you get the mud, so I'm not sure that people would have liked it to go through August, so getting it done now is great, and I appreciate his efforts.
Forrest?
I attended the Memorial Day service at the Bellbrook Cemetery. That's always a really good service. It's coordinated with one of our outstanding citizens, Ben Rader, and I've been to several of them, and they're always great. And I just want to remind everybody, we are a Purple Heart City, and I've been asked a few people, what is Purple Heart City? Basically, the short answer is bring awareness of our veterans that have served in the past, serving now, and will serve in the future. So, that's all I have.
Mr. McGill?
None.
Nothing more.
I just wanted to, I'll probably mention this a few times before then, but July 29th is the Eagle 5K, and that starts at the high school, and the proceeds support the football program. Trying to get as many people signed up to run or walk a 5K. July 29th, it starts at 9 o'clock, and some of our flyers are here. I put them out in the, I don't know what you call it, the foyer area, as far as like sign-up sheets to participate, so. That's it.
Great, thank you. Mr. Schweller?
Mayor, nothing further for tonight.
Open discussion? I see no one jumping up. Does any other member on council have any other business to come before us this meeting of the city council?
Do not?
Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.